Sometimes we think that the main signs of aging are wrinkles, gray hair, or a weary body. But true old age begins not with the face, but in the brain. It manifests when memory falters, emotions fade, and interest in life diminishes. And what is most terrifying is that all this is often not related to age, but to the products we perceive as healthy. Yes, those very products we keep in the fruit bowl can gradually destroy the brain, depriving us of clarity of thought, good mood, and even individuality. I say this not to scare you. I am a doctor with over 30 years of experience, and throughout my practice, I have seen many people come to me with complaints. They said, "Doctor, I have become forgetful. I find it hard to concentrate. Sometimes I approach the refrigerator and don't remember why I came, but the truth is different. The brain does not age by itself. It wears out from what we place into it daily. Here is the paradox. Many products considered symbols of health actually contribute to inflammation, fatigue, and create brain fog, especially certain fruits. We tend to believe that the more fruits in our diet, the better. But I beg you, do not believe this simple truth. During my practice, I observed how people with perfect analyses, the right weight, and an active lifestyle lost their cognitive clarity solely due to consuming certain fruits, unaware that they were becoming a slow poison for their neurons. Today, I will tell you about this. You will learn about 5 fruits that silently destroy the brain, as well as 5 that can literally save it from dementia. But please listen until the end, because I left the most important and perhaps the most unexpected fruit for last. He is capable of slowing down brain aging and restoring clarity of thought even after 60 years. Believe me, these are not empty words. This is based on my personal experience and dozens of stories from my patients. Once, I observed a woman named Marina, who was 68. She was energetic, engaged in Nordic walking, and monitored her diet, but began to complain about memory lapses. "Doctor, I read a book, and an hour later I can't remember what the first chapter was about. I've become irritable, forgetting where I put my phone." We spent a long time figuring out that every day she consumed what she considered harmless, 2 or 3 favorite fruits. It was these that provoked chronic inflammation in the blood vessels of the brain, hindering the absorption of important substances and causing fluctuations in blood sugar. When we eliminated these products, 3 weeks passed, and she called me herself. "Doctor, it's as if a veil has been lifted from my head. I feel like myself again." That's why today I want to share with you something that is rarely discussed on television and that many nutritionists avoid because it's an uncomfortable truth. Not all fruits are healthy. Some of them can literally scorch our brains from the inside, destroying connections between cells, accelerating aging, and increasing the risk of dementia. Some products, on the contrary, support the work of neurons, cleanse the vessels, and activate recovery processes as if returning youth to the mind. Have you noticed that you get tired more quickly? That sometimes your interest in new activities, communication, and life in general fades? That your mind seems shrouded in fog, and even a simple task causes irritation? This is not laziness or character. It's biochemistry. These are signals that your brain lacks quality nutrition. It is like an engine that is fed sweet syrup instead of good fuel. Shiny, fragrant, but destructive. Unfortunately, many do this daily, unaware that they are destroying themselves from within. From my experience, after 50, proper nutrition becomes either the main medicine or a deadly poison. No pills or workouts compare to what is on your table. With age, the brain starts to respond more sharply to every little thing. Some products help preserve youth, while others take away years of clear consciousness. So I ask you, do not perceive this video as an ordinary diet or fashion advice. This is a conversation about your future, your memory, and your personality. And here is the most important, simplest, yet truly life-changing thing. I will share it at the very end. I usually share this advice only with my closest patients in private. It can literally protect the brain from deterioration, even if you already notice the first signs of forgetfulness. And now, get ready. In the next part, I will explain why the brain starts needing help after 50, how nutrition affects its functioning, and why some fruits act on neurons like poison, while others act like an elixir of life. And please do not miss a second, for this knowledge can grant you many years of clarity and peace. When a person is young, their brain functions like a well-coordinated orchestra. Every cell knows its role, every movement is precise, energy is bubbling. We remember instantly, learning on the go. Thoughts flow easily like a spring brook, but with the years, the rhythm falters, cells slow down, vessels constrict, metabolism becomes more sluggish, If during this period one continues to feed the brain with what oppresses it, it literally begins to burn out. This is not a metaphor. It is biology. Neurons age not due to age, but because of overload, toxins, and chronic inflammation often caused by our food. When I first started my practice, I believed that dementia was an inevitable consequence of aging. However, the more patients I observed, the clearer I understood. The brain can be kept young. The main thing is to learn to listen to its signals. The brain is not a stone. It is flexible and alive, capable of renewal at any age, but it needs the right fuel for that. Many are surprised how fruits, considered a symbol of health, can be harmful. It's simple. After 50, metabolism changes. The body can no longer handle excess fructose as it once did. An excess of sweet fruits raises blood sugar levels, causes micro-inflammations in the brain's vessels, and disrupts normal blood circulation, resulting in a feeling of fog in the head, weakness, and forgetfulness. I have observed this many times, especially among those who preferred fruit to dinner, believing they were doing the right thing. Among my patients was a man, Nikolai, 62 years old. He looked vigorous and athletic, always carefully monitoring his diet. However, in recent years he began to notice that his memory was deteriorating. He forgot meetings, confused dates, and lost the thread of conversation. We conducted an examination, and his physical condition turned out to be impeccable. Then I asked him to tell me about his diet, and he proudly stated, "Every morning I eat 3 bananas, an orange, and drink juice. It's healthy." And here lies the problem. A month after he reduced certain fruits, his condition noticeably improved. After 3 months, he said, "Doctor, it seems my brain has started working again." This is how food affects our brain, not immediately but deeply. Sugar, even if it's from fruit, causes sharp fluctuations in insulin levels. Insulin, in turn, prevents neurons from getting energy. The brain seems to freeze under such strain, and when this happens regularly, memory begins to fail. This is the slow, unnoticed aging of the brain caused by poor nutrition, not age. But there is another side to the coin. We can nourish our brain not with destruction, but with vitality. There are fruits that act as protectors of neurons. They are rich in antioxidants, B vitamins, and flavonoids, substances that reduce inflammation, cleanse vessels, and promote cell recovery. Such fruits not only provide energy, but they also initiate brain rejuvenation processes. I say this not as a theorist, but as a doctor who has witnessed these changes. I had an elderly couple. The husband was 70 years old, and the wife was 68. The husband began to forget the names of his grandchildren, and his wife worried that he was losing his identity. We changed their diet, adding a few simple foods, which I will describe later. After 6 months, he became more focused, his memory improved, and his mood stabilized. When they came to see me, the wife said, "Doctor, now I see interest in life in his eyes." And you know it's not a miracle, but simple physiology. The brain needs care, attention, and proper nutrition. The problem is that after 50, the brain becomes particularly vulnerable. Vessels lose their elasticity, metabolism slows down, and cells become more sensitive to toxins. Poor nutrition is like a crack in crystal. It may be barely noticeable, but over time, it destroys everything. At the same time, a sensible change in diet can trigger a reverse process. I often tell my patients, you cannot stop time, but you can slow down brain aging. To do this, you need to eliminate everything that provokes inflammation and add what brings life. Fruits play a key role here, as it is through them that the brain receives signals about whether to live or fade away. Now I will talk about the first step, about those fruits that, no matter how it sounds, insidiously destroy the brain. They seem beneficial, but in adulthood, they can become its enemies. Believe me, some of them you eat almost every day, and perhaps they are stealing your memory, energy, and clarity. But don't rush to throw everything out of the fridge. It's important not just to eliminate harmful products, but to replace them with those that can truly protect your neurons. I strive for you to not only avoid dementia, but also to live with clarity, lightness, and inner light. In the next section, I will detail the first category of fruits that negatively affect the brain and explain why they pose a particular danger after reaching the age of 50. Moreover, I will share what can replace these fruits so that brain recovery begins in just a few days. Many may be surprised, but the first step to maintaining mental clarity is to dispel the myth that all fruits are equally beneficial. This is absolutely not the case. And my first advice that I give to all my patients over 50 is reduce or temporarily exclude fruits high in fructose and with a high glycemic index. This especially applies to grapes, bananas, watermelons, dates, and pineapples. It is they who most often provoke a state that I call brain fog. Let me explain. When we consume such fruits, the sugar from them is quickly absorbed. In response, the body releases insulin, a hormone that should deal with excess glucose. However, in mature individuals, cells are no longer as sensitive to insulin as in youth. As a result, the brain does not receive enough energy, and excess sugar accumulates in the blood, leading to microinflammation. This condition slowly destroys blood vessels, including the small capillaries of the brain. I call it a quiet fire. It doesn't hurt, it's not visible, but it gradually robs us of memory, concentration, and joy. I remember a patient, a man named Oleg, who was 58 years old. He was a smart and calm leader, but began to complain. "Doctor, I increasingly forget the names of my subordinates. I have become irritable and cannot concentrate. I think it's age." We conducted tests and found elevated insulin levels and mild vascular inflammation. However, the reason turned out to be simple. Every day for lunch, he ate a salad made of bananas, grapes, and yogurt. At first glance, it looked like a light and healthy snack. But just 2 weeks after he eliminated those fruits and replaced them with others, which I will describe later, the mental fog literally lifted. He called me and said, "I feel alive again. Thoughts flow easily, like before." You might say, "But fruits are vitamins." Yes, this is indeed true. But it is important to understand that the fruit itself is dangerous for a mature brain, particularly its high sugar concentration, especially if you eat them on an empty stomach or in the evening when metabolism slows down. In such moments, the brain receives an excess of energy that it cannot utilize, leading to oxidative stress. And stress is the main enemy of neurons. Therefore, if you notice that you are forgetting more often, finding it harder to concentrate, or getting tired more quickly, try eliminating these 5 fruits from your diet for at least a week: grapes, bananas, watermelons, dates, and pineapples. This is not a punishment, but an experiment for your mind. In just a few days, you will feel your mind clearer, your focus sharper, and your mood more stable. In my experience, people who take this step literally awaken. A man who stopped eating bananas and dates for dinner told me, "Doctor, I woke up for the first time in years without heaviness in my head. It's not a miracle, just biochemistry." When blood sugar levels are stable, the brain receives pure fuel. Blood vessels begin to function normally, and neurons restore their connections. But I want to warn you, do not replace these fruits with juices. They are even more dangerous, even if freshly squeezed. Why? Because juices lack fiber, the sugar from them is absorbed instantly. Imagine pouring concentrated syrup into a vessel. The blood reacts immediately, glucose levels spike, and the brain gets a jolt. Gradually, this leads to exhaustion, fatigue, dizziness, and a feeling of fuzziness in the head. Therefore, the first step to brain health is to consciously choose fruits. They should not be too sweet, with a mild acidity, containing fiber and skin. For example, green apples, berries, plums, and kiwis. But that is for later. It is important to understand the principle. Excessive consumption of sweet fruits is a silent enemy for the brain. I often tell my patients, do not be afraid to remove. Be afraid of inaction. Every day that we continue to give sugar to the brain, we subtly steal clarity and memory from ourselves. However, everything can be changed by simply replacing a habit. Try doing one simple action tomorrow. In the morning, instead of a sweet fruit, eat half a sour apple and a handful of nuts. For lunch, instead of a grape salad, take berries. And in the evening, just refuse fruits after 5 o'clock. It may seem like a trifle, but in a week, you will feel as if it has become brighter inside. Please do not postpone. I beg you. Do not wait until mental fatigue becomes your norm. In the next recommendation, I will talk about another, no less important aspect. About fruits that, on the contrary, support our brain. They nourish it, cleanse the vessels, slow down the aging process, and literally revive the neurons. One of them is completely unexpected. He is often overlooked, although he can slow down brain aging at the cellular level. But remember this. A healthy brain starts not with pills, but with conscious choices on the plate. After you remove overly sweet fruits from your diet, your brain seems to exhale, but it's not enough to just exclude the harmful. It needs to be filled with what heals, restores, and protects. After all, our brain can be compared to a garden. If you pull out the weeds, you need to plant seeds. Therefore, the second step is to add fruits to the diet that truly save the brain. They nourish neurons, strengthen vessels, and activate processes that slow aging. I call them fruits of clarity. The first place among them is undoubtedly occupied by berries. Blueberries, blackcurrants, cherries, cranberries, sour cherries, and blackberries. These small fruits are a true shield for the brain. They are rich in anthocyanins, substances that protect cells from oxidative stress. Imagine millions of tiny shields reflecting the blows of free radicals, preventing the destruction of neurons. This is why people who regularly consume berries have a lower risk of developing dementia and Alzheimer's disease. This is confirmed by numerous scientific studies, but I also observed it in practice. I had a patient named Alla Petrovna. She was 72 years old. She lived alone, took care of her garden, and was very afraid of losing her memory, as her mother had dementia. When we started working together, I advised her to eat at least a handful of frozen blueberries or currants every morning. She laughed and said, "Doctor, that's trivial. Can it really help?" 6 months later, she admitted, "I can taste life again. My thoughts are no longer tangled. I found it easier to remember what to buy or where to go." It's not a miracle, but a natural response of the brain to proper nutrition, which helps it function. The next amazing fruit is the pomegranate. It is often underestimated, and that is wrong. Pomegranate is one of the few products capable of cleansing blood vessels in the brain, reducing inflammation, and improving circulation. When I say cleanses, I mean that the polyphenols in pomegranate prevent the clumping of cholesterol particles and maintain the elasticity of the vessels. As a result, the brain receives more oxygen, and you feel lightness, clarity, and a surge of energy. In my experience, people who drink a small amount of freshly squeezed pomegranate juice daily, no more than half a glass, appear and think much younger than their years. The third fruit worth mentioning is kiwi. It is rightly called the fruit of youth. It is rich in vitamin C and contains substances that promote the production of serotonin, the hormone of joy and inner peace. After all, dementia and depression often go hand in hand. When a person loses interest in life, the brain ages faster. Therefore, I always advise, eat kiwi at night. It calms, improves sleep, and restores neural connections. The fourth fruit is apples, especially green ones with the skin. They contain quercetin, a powerful antioxidant that protects brain cells from aging. It's important to eat them with the skin, as the main strength is concentrated there. I observed many patients who seemed to show early signs of memory decline, but after a few months of regularly eating apples, their condition noticeably improved. And you know what they said? "Doctor, it feels like my thoughts have become clearer."